Hello, Oracles. Well, Tesla falls 5% today as we get in some jobs data. We will go over that. Tesla also came out with a new color for their Model S, the Ultra Red, as you can see behind me here. So, very exciting news on that front. We've got Elon talking about how he wants to come up with a community of his own that is going to be self sustaining. This is actually one of those theories that I had come up with myself and discussed with you guys on here. Now it seems like it's actually going to be real. So we'll go into a little of that information as well and thoughts behind that in just a minute. All right, so first things first, looking at the charts. Like we said, we had this cup and handle pattern going. Weren't sure if we were going to break out or break down. Other indicators were kind of leading us to believe that we were going to be breaking down. And sure enough, we have broken down. So we're falling down here from this cup and handle, and we're now down another 5%, closing at 172.92. So now the RSI is down to 41. As we said previously, we have kind of gone to overbought, down to oversold, up to overbought, down to oversold. So there's a chance we're going to be falling into this oversold range. So we would still have a little bit further to fall from here. How much further that's going to be, how long it's going to take, truly don't know. But looking at how we're falling here, don't forget we've got this gap down to 146. There's a chance that we're going to end up filling this gap. And looking at the weekly chart, we're still at a 44 for the RSI. And in the monthly chart, we're at a 45. So based upon all three, we can still fall a bit further. Again, we've got these gaps that go all the way down to 114. If it gets really ugly, which I think might happen if we end up not getting the soft landing that the Fed's talking about, and we get a deep recession, could fall under 100 next year. That's a long ways off. In the near term where we're looking right now, pulling back to fill this gap at 146 might end up happening before we turn around. And so I know many of you have been asking where I think we're going to end up bouncing and coming back up. Obviously, nobody knows for sure, but looking at the data here, I do think we're going to end up filling this gap before we end up turning around. So we'll probably pull down to that 146. I'm just going to kind of pay attention as we go forward from here because, again, the next Tesla specific news that we're going to get, unless they surprise announce something, is not going to happen until Q1 earnings. So we do have a bit of time before that happens, about a month and a half. So between now and then, we're kind of at the mercy of the macro environment. And with the jobs data that we got in today, jobless claims coming in at 211,000, it was better than expected. However, it's still historically low. So this is more of that data that the Fed was talking about and saying, we need to see what the data is going to be coming in at to determine what we're going to be going for rate hikes. This data here and CPI and PPI next week are going to be those indicators and that data that's going to lead the Fed to whatever rate hike they're going to do. Based upon these numbers, we might end up seeing perhaps even a 50 basis point hike in the next FOMC meeting. Kind of sounds crazy because we thought we were tapering off and heading towards a pause. Now we might be going in the opposite direction. So again, a lot has to do with the macro environment right now. This is a big reason that we're pulling back. And don't forget, like I said yesterday, Tesla has a lot of options that are bought into it right now. People are starting to look at this and say, I think we might be wanting to take some profits right now. Not sure where we're going to fall to. So we're just going to play it safe. And that could end up being a self-fulfilling prophecy to pull a lot of things down. People thinking, oh, we're falling faster than I thought. I'm going to sell faster. The faster people sell, the faster it falls. And the faster it falls, the more sell orders get triggered. And it ends up being that domino effect similar to what we saw at the end of last year. Probably won't be as drastic as it was last year, just because I don't think there's as much margin in there right now. At least hopefully there's not, but we truly don't know. We will just have to wait and see as this plays forward. But these indicators are just kind of telling me that we are going to be pulling down. And so looking at this news from Elon Musk is planning a Texas utopia, his own town. The entrepreneur is laying plans for a new community outside Austin next to boring and SpaceX facilities dubbed Snailbrook. Entities tied to Mr. Musk's companies or executives have purchased at least 3,500 acres. And so if you guys had seen the live stream that we had with Jen Strahan on here, we were discussing some of this as well. Speaking about the future and what Elon's mentality is, thinking Elon would start a community. If we've got what Connecting the Dots was talking about when it comes to Project Highland, and we have a factory that's built, and then you build a whole community around that, and then you put in there the college that Elon was speaking about also. There's the education. You have your entire community all set. Here's where you're going to work. Here's where you're going to live. We will even educate you in this area. By the way, it's going to be self sustaining. So they're going to be seeing the value of this. So now other towns and communities out there are going to see this. Now, as Jen pointed out, retrofitting old towns on an old grid are going to be costly and much more difficult to do, but there's a lot of land out there for new places. One of the biggest things that's going on, there's a lot of it going on in Texas right now as it is a lot of these places come in and you can see in small areas, small rural areas, you see kind of little communities. Maybe a little area of 15, 20 houses get built, nice little community. Well, in Texas and other places where there's a lot more land, it's not just a 15 or 20 home community. We're talking larger, basically towns that are getting built. They have shops and gas stations, everything that they need for this whole entire community to completely survive on themselves. Basically, its own little self sustaining community. Well, in Elon's vision, he is going to be seeing this with self sustaining. You don't need gas, everything's going to be electric. Everything is going to be running on solar and wind. You don't even need to be tied into the grid. There are people now who live off the grid. You may have one or two homes that are living on solar, not tied to the grid at all. Well, between Tesla and Starlink, you can now have a community that isn't even tied into anything that has to do with the rest of the world around them. This is his vision. He's going to see this. He's going to show how, hey, we can do this, and it's much more inexpensive than doing it the old fashioned way. More and more people are going to start doing this and see it. Then you're going to end up seeing towns end up falling apart because they're going to have people exiting their towns because these communities probably won't have massive taxes. They're going to have much lower taxes, much lower costs for a lot of things. It's literally disrupting towns and communities. So not only is Tesla and Elon going to be disrupting EVs, energy, all of this, they're literally going to be disrupting society. Elon's got Twitter that's going in this direction as well when it comes to the open forum for people to speak on and speak their mind freely. This whole entire thing is so much bigger than Tesla. It's something that, again, I've been piecing together little bits here and there, and now Elon is actually showing what can potentially become of all of this. Now, again, I don't know how long it's going to take for all of this to play out, but as we get more details, we'll talk about it, and you guys can let us know in the comments below what you think about it. I'm extremely excited for it, and one of the things we had spoken about before were these concrete 3D homes, and these are starting to come up in the Texas area. So I'm curious if this is something that Elon is actually going to be using for his little town as well, but I looked into it, and it seems pretty convenient and pretty efficient to be able to run on one of these houses. And obviously, the more they end up getting out there, the less expensive it will end up being as they get to scale. Whether that technology is actually scalable or not has yet to be seen, but this could be a direction that we go. Now, that's obviously well outside the scope of just Tesla specific, but that's what's going to play into this altogether. You're basically going to have Tesla Town. And now I know it's outside of SpaceX and Boring Company, but guess what vehicles pretty much everybody in that town will be driving? Teslas. Because if that town is going to be running on strictly solar and wind, you're going to be running on electricity. You're not even going to have gas stations in this town. Why would you? So you're not going to have any ICE vehicles. This whole thing is really starting to come together, and people who don't see it yet, I think are going to be shocked in a few years and just amazed at how far this is going to progress. And there it is, the ultra red paint for the Model S and the Model X. So I don't know if any of you out there are looking at getting one of these vehicles, but you can let us know in the comments below if you are looking forward to getting this in the ultra red. This is a slight different variation from the midnight cherry red that they have over in Berlin. Red is not my thing when it comes to a vehicle, but I do think this looks pretty awesome myself. All right, so the last thing I wanted to touch on, more on the macro level when it comes to my own personal investments. One of my CDs matured today. It ended up maturing, and that was one at 4.2%. And I rolled that into a 4.6% CD for another 1 month. So I'm doing this rolling forward because every single time we're seeing the Fed raising rates, CD interest rates also go up. So I'm keeping this 1 month at a time because we do have the FOMC meeting coming up in a couple of weeks. So I'm anticipating obviously at least a 25, if not a 50 basis point hike then. That means that any more of my CDs that end up maturing will be able to get at a higher rate as well. So right now, the rest of mine are sitting there between 4.1 and 4.5%. So moving forward, I might be able to get closer to 5% on these CDs. Now, I know a lot of people out there are like, oh, that's boring, 5%. That's not much of a gain. You're right. But for money that I'm planning on using for a house when the housing market comes down, and I'm getting literally nothing in my basic savings account, getting 5% back is pretty good. Now, I had a discussion with my father discussing how, if inflation is high and I'm getting only a 4 to 4.5% return on a CD, I'm still basically losing money if inflation is 6%. But as he also reminded me, inflation is based upon a bunch of different factors that are in there. Could be used car prices, could be a lot of other factors that are in there that might not actually affect me whatsoever. So, inflation for me on a personal level might actually be more like 2% based upon what I'm actually purchasing. If that's the case, I am actually getting a very good return on these CDs with no risk whatsoever in them. Sure, you can argue, hey, if I went out there and I got myself some of these stocks and I swung up, you can get a lot more. I mean, heck, Tesla was up over 100% in 2 months. That's awesome, but extremely risky. And if I want to have my money liquid to be able to pull out and put into another investment, I don't want to pull it out of an investment that has tanked and I have to take a loss on that to put it into something else. I'd rather have this cash safe just in case, and having it giving me these nice returns is pretty decent. Now, I've also contemplated putting into some dividend stocks as well, but with the entire market pulling down, even a dividend ETF ends up losing money, and you don't really balance out equally, at least on the pullback when it comes to the return on that dividend. So it's just a precarious balance that I'm playing with right now. I'm playing it conservatively safe. And to me, 4.6% in a CD, especially knowing that it's going to continue going up for at least the next 3 months, is to me the safest place that I can put my money right now. So you guys can let me know what you're doing with your money in the comments. Again, none of that is financial advice. It's just what I'm doing right now. So again, red today. I have a feeling, like I said, we're probably going to continue pulling down, may balance off a little bit. We may hit some points where we end up getting some sales coming back in. But again, I think we are heading to that oversold range. Seems like ARK has been buying, but don't forget when it comes to ARK, if they have that 10% threshold when it comes to Tesla, and Tesla's pulling back as much as it is, that means that Tesla is not going to be 10% of their portfolio anymore. That means that they will just mathematically be adding more. Looking at my portfolio itself, my cash was around 8%, crypto was around 11 to 12%, and my Tesla was around 72%. Now that we're seeing this pullback going on, my Tesla stock is around 69%, my crypto is around 10%, and my cash is back up to 10%. So that's the exact balance I'm looking for. Now I can kind of monitor as things go forward to say, hey, if we're going to continue this pullback, do I end up adding more money into Tesla? I have that $150 level as my threshold right now. If we hit that 150 and go below that, I will increase my daily additions to $25 from 20 and then just monitor it from there as we come down. If we get below 125, I may increase that to $30. I'll let you guys know as we get to that point, if we get to that point. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate all of your support. We'll see you in the next one. Have a great one.